Welcome to Quantitative Metrics for Evaluating Explanations of Video Deepfake Detectors. I am Federico Baldassarre from KTH in Stockholm, and this is a collaboration with the Huawei Research Center in Dublin. First of all, what are deepfakes? The term refers to the manipulation of media content with the goal of changing the identity of a person or their behavior. Over the years, we have seen examples of forgery in all domains: image, audio, and video. For example, swapping the face of an actor in movies or generating podcast episodes with simulated participants. Thanks to open source projects and hardware availability, the process has become more and more accessible. All it takes is to collect data on a target and apply some off-the-shelf deep learning model. As imaginable, deepfakes have been misused in the wild. For example, financial scams over the phone with generated audio, spreading fake videos for bullying, and in general, political misinformation. To counter the spread of low-cost deepfakes, researchers have developed tools for detection and content moderation. Thanks to these efforts and the introduction of large-scale datasets, deepfake detectors have become more and more powerful. However, little progress has been made from the perspective of explainability. Usually, after a model has made a prediction, explanations are generated using a gradient-based method such as smoothgrad. These explanations take the form of heat maps that convey vague information on how a decision was made. We identify two main reasons for this lack of explainability. On the one hand, public challenges and benchmarks insist on chasing ever higher accuracy while giving little importance to explanations. On the other hand, the community lacks established metrics to evaluate explanations. We introduce a set of quantitative metrics to evaluate explanations from the human perspective. These metrics are built on sound mathematical foundation and are objective and fully automated. This way, they allow for direct comparison across methods instead of relying on a few subjective examples. Also, they are easy to integrate in deployment pipelines for content moderation in the industry so that accuracy is not the only metric. We divide our metrics into categories. First, we ask, how interpretable is a heat map? And measure visual qualities that are important for human perception. Specifically, explanations should be smooth, sparse, and localized. Second, we focus on correctness and ask, does the heat map focus on the forged parts? Since we are in control of the generative process, we can limit the manipulation to a specific part of the face. Then we evaluate the resulting explanation as a form of unsupervised segmentation. Let's discuss these metrics one by one. First, we consider the smoothness of an explanation as measured by total variation. Previous work has shown that high-frequency details are difficult to perceive, for example, texture imperfections. Instead, we want explanations to focus on low-frequency manipulation cues. Therefore, we prefer heat maps with low total variation. Second, we consider the spatial extent of a heat map. We want to avoid explanations that focus on too many details in different parts of the video. Ideally, they should be localized around the most important artifacts. This is expressed by preferring explanations with low spatial covariance. Last, we observe that a few highly important regions are more informative than several mildly important ones. In other words, we are looking for sparsity in the relevance values with only a few important pixels. To measure sparsity, we adopt the Gini index. The higher the index, the more unequal the relevance values, which is preferred. Smooth, sparse, and localized heat maps are visually appealing, but they should also tell us where the manipulation is. Usually, this is framed as an unsupervised segmentation task, where the explanation should match an external annotation. In the context of deepfakes, we can sidestep the annotations, take control of the generative process, and rely on ground truth manipulation masks. Specifically, we take a pair of real and fake videos that are spatially and temporally aligned. Then we recombine them using a face parsing model to limit the forgery to a specific area. In this example, we selected the nose from the fake video. Everything else comes from the real one. Finally, we run a detector on the resulting video and explain its prediction. The heatmap should have a high overlap with the ground truth manipulation mask from the previous step. Through the lens of these metrics, we analyze existing techniques and discuss their effect on explanations. Previous work suggests removing high-frequency components during training so that the model learns to focus on more interpretable cues. Second, we regularize intermediate layers to encourage smooth activations. Third, cutout is a popular form of data augmentation for learning multiple manipulation cues by randomly masking the input. Finally, we compare our convolutional baseline with a transformer. These two architectures have different inductive biases in their design, for example, focusing on texture or shape. In detail, we use the following setup for the experiments. The baseline is an S3D convolutional model trained from scratch on the DFDC dataset. We apply the 4 techniques from the previous slide and train a new model each. Then, we compare classification performance and evaluation metrics on the test splits of DFDC and DFD. Since the original videos are not centered on faces, we pre-process them by detecting the main face and cropping a square patch around it. During training, all videos are 32 frames long at 5 FPS. This figure shows the evaluation results of our metrics for each setup. The results are averaged over multiple independent runs. Low-pass filtering the input videos does not improve explanation smoothness, contrary to what was observed for images in previous work. Regularizing activations yields smoother and sparser explanations, but hinders classification accuracy. Cutout augmentation results in better generalization from DFDC to DFD and better manipulation detection. It has little effect on other metrics. Compared to the CNN baseline, the MVIT transformer produces smoother and sparser explanations that also perform well for manipulation detection. In general, we observe that gradient-based explanations are noisy and unstructured. Users cannot easily parse the heat maps and intuitively understand why a video was marked as fake. To verify this, we consider 4 types of post-processing that turn the heat maps in more structured visualizations. Then, we run a small-scale user study to ask which technique is preferred. The raw heat map is the most faithful to the model, but is hard to interpret. It can be approximated with a single Gaussian that focuses on the most important area. Alternatively, it can be processed with a blob detector to produce multiple centers of focus. Last, the heat map can be aggregated using semantic parsing. Pixel-level information is lost, but the explanation appears more structured since it's based on face parts. In our study, users prefer the most structured visualizations, namely blob and semantic aggregation. This suggests that the gap between human perception and explainability is still quite large, and that more structured forms of information processing are required. In conclusion, let's summarize our work. We introduced a set of quantitative metrics for evaluating explanations. These metrics are objective and fully automated, which makes them suitable for comparison across methods and content moderation pipelines. This way, we hope to encourage further research on the explainability of deepfake detectors. By evaluating existing techniques, we observe that heavy regularization and architecture bias produce better explanations. However, there is a trade-off between explanation quality and classification performance. Last, we discuss alternatives to present explanation to end users, which is ultimately critical for developing trust and awareness. Thanks for your attention. Join us at the poster session or visit the website to know more about this project.